Under the golden lights of the Crystal Bloom restaurant, the evening crowd shimmered like luxury itself. The scent of roses mixed with the sound of laughter and glass as waiters moved in rhythm across the marble floor, and in the corner a woman, in white diamonds, entered with a silence that made even the music pause. Everyone knew her name. Evelyn Monroe, wife of the millionaire Victor Monroe. She was beautiful, powerful, and feared her words could destroy a career. Her smile could ruin a life. Every server lowered their eyes when she passed. Her perfume trailed like warning smoke through the air. Maya was new. She held her tray tight, her heart beating fast. She had been warned before the shift began. Never spill near table 12. That table belonged to Evelyn, the queen of whispers, the woman whose husband owned half the city. Evelyn sat with two friends, laughing too loudly, their jewels catching the light like small stars. Her gaze swept the room and stopped on Maya, who stood too still, too quiet. Evelyn's lips curved just slightly, like she had found something to break. She raised a finger and pointed. "Come here." Maya walked over, careful, calm, trying to smile. Evelyn looked her over from head to toe, her eyes sharp like glass. "You're new," Evelyn said, her voice smooth but heavy. "Yes, ma'am," Maya answered softly. Evelyn tilted her head. "Your voice is shaking. Are you nervous?" "No, ma'am." Evelyn leaned back in her chair, one nail tapping the glass. "Good," she said. "I like honesty. Now pour my wine." Maya lifted the bottle. The liquid gleamed red under the light. She poured gently, the aroma rich and deep. Evelyn watched the stream, her eyes following every drop, and then she said, "Stop." Maya froze halfway. Evelyn smiled, thinner than before. "You spilled one drop on the cloth." Maya looked down, a tiny dark stain, no bigger than a tear. Evelyn's voice cut through the laughter. "Unbelievable. You can't even hold a bottle properly." The other guests looked away. One of Evelyn's friends whispered, "Let it go." But Evelyn didn't. She reached for the napkin and wiped the table slowly, deliberately, every motion, a lesson. Then she placed the napkin back and said, "Clean it again." Maya took a fresh cloth. Her face calm, her hands steady, but inside her, stomach twisted. She had cleaned harder jobs, faced louder anger, yet this felt colder, more public. Evelyn leaned closer. "Do you know who my husband is?" Maya nodded. "Yes." Everyone did. Victor Monroe was sitting across the room with three investors. He was older, sharper, his face unreadable. He glanced once toward his wife, then away. Evelyn noticed it. Her smile faltered just for a second. Then she turned back to Maya with new fire. "If you can't serve with grace," she said, "maybe you should serve somewhere. That fits you better. A diner, perhaps?" Maya's eyes lifted. Meeting Evelyn's for the first time, something passed there, quiet but strong. Evelyn blinked, surprised by that calm stare she wasn't used to. Resistance, even silent resistance. The manager hurried over, whispering apologies, promising compensation, but Evelyn waved him off, her attention locked on Maya again. "What's your name?" she asked Maya. "Noor." Evelyn repeated it softly, like tasting the sound, then nodded. "Pretty name for a clumsy girl." Maya bowed slightly. "Thank you, ma'am." Evelyn smirked. "You should be thankful I'm teaching you how the world works. People like you should learn from people like me." At another table, a man in a gray suit watched the scene unfold. He didn't speak, didn't move, but his eyes followed Maya every step she took. He wrote something on his napkin, folded it, and slipped it into his pocket. Maya returned to the kitchen, her coworkers whispering around her, some pity, some fear. But she said nothing. She placed the tray down and looked at the small stain on her sleeve. Her reflection in the steel counter looked back, calm, quiet, determined. Outside the kitchen door, she could still hear Evelyn's laugh, loud again. Victorious. Maya closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them, steady as the hum of the city below. She knew something Evelyn didn't, something the room would soon learn. Victor Monroe was watching too. His expression unreadable, but his mind turning. He lifted his glass slowly and said to his investors, "People always show their true selves when they think no one important is watching." Back inside the kitchen, the manager approached, whispering, "Maya, please be careful. She's dangerous. Maya nodded. I know, he frowned, then why? Aren't you afraid? Maya looked at the door and said softly. Because fear only works when you have something to lose. She touched the bracelet on her wrist. Old silver worn from time. A quiet reminder of a life she had hidden from everyone. At table 12. Evelyn called for dessert. Her tone sweet again, but her eyes restless. She didn't know why she kept glancing toward the kitchen door. Maybe it was the way that Waitress had looked at her calm, like she wasn't beneath her. Like she was waiting for something. Evelyn tried to laugh it off, but the sound didn't reach her eyes. The man in gray left his seat, walking toward the manager, his voice low but certain. Tell Miss Noor. It's time. Evelyn turned slightly, hearing her own name echoed by accident through the restaurant. Time for what she asked, but no one answered. The lights dimmed slightly. The piano slowed, and somewhere between the tables the air changed, like a storm was coming. And for the first time, Evelyn felt a small chill she couldn't name. The night deepened around the crystal bloom, the glass walls glowing like fire as rain began to fall outside. Each drop racing down the windows, like tears. Evelyn sat straighter in her chair, pretending not to care, but her fingers kept tracing the edge of her diamond bracelet. She told herself the chill in her chest was only from the air conditioning, not from the memory of the waitress who dared to look her in the eye. Her friends had left one by one, claiming early meetings, but she knew they just wanted to escape her temper. She could hear them whispering at the elevator about how she had changed, about how power had made her cruel. She smiled to herself. Cruel was better than weak. In the kitchen, Maya stood beside the counter, her apron damp from the steam, her mind quiet, her heart no longer racing. The manager had stepped out with the man in the gray suit who had asked for her. She didn't know why someone like him wanted to see a waitress, but something in his calm voice made her curious. She cleaned the counter again to hide her nerves. The doors opened and the manager returned, his face pale. He said, Maya, come with me now. She wiped her hands and followed him through the corridor lined with glass bottles and soft lights. Evelyn turned when she saw them walking back into the dining room, her smile returning like armor. Well, she said. Couldn't stay away. Could you? The manager's throat tightened before he spoke. Miss Monroe. Mr. Victor asked that. Maya served dessert at your table. Evelyn froze for a breath, then laughed sweetly. Of course he did. She waved her hand. Bring her closer. Let's finish the show. Maya walked forward, steady, her eyes clear. She placed a tray with a single plate, a slice of dark chocolate cake, and one silver fork. Evelyn tilted her head. Only one plate. Maya replied. Yes, ma'am. He said it's just for you. Evelyn laughed again. He said that, did he? How kind of him. Victor Monroe entered, then the restaurant fell silent. He wasn't the kind of man who needed to speak to command a room. Tall, controlled eyes like steel. He walked toward table 12 with no smile, no warmth. The investors had left, the papers were signed. The empire was his. Again, Evelyn rose, expecting a kiss or a word, but he only looked at her like she was someone else, someone distant. He sat down and gestured for Maya to pour his wine. She obeyed quietly, and the moment she did, Evelyn's smile cracked a little. You like humiliating people, Victor, said finally, his voice calm, too calm. Evelyn blinked. Excuse me? You do it to make yourself feel safe because deep down you're still afraid. She laughed, but the sound was hollow. Afraid of what? Afraid of losing. Evelyn turned her ring slowly on her finger, afraid of losing what she had built. Victor looked at her, the city lights burning behind him. Afraid of losing me. The silence that followed pressed against every wall. Even the waiters froze. Maya kept her eyes on the glass as she poured, but her hand didn't shake. Victor leaned forward. You remember the girl who worked for us years ago? Evelyn frowned. Which one? The one you called useless? He said the one you fired the night before your accident. Evelyn's breath caught the wine glass. In her hand trembled for the first time since she had entered this world of glitter and pride. She felt her throat close. That girl, he continued, was the reason you were found in time. The reason you lived. Maya's eyes lifted just slightly, meeting, as he didn't need to say more. Evelyn turned to look at Maya fully for the first time, really seeing her. You, she whispered, but the word came out more like a gasp. Maya nodded softly. Yes, ma'am, I was there that night. Evelyn shook her head. No, it can't be you, Victor said. She pulled you from the car before it caught fire. She disappeared after you recovered, and I found her again last year. She works here now. Evelyn stared, her heart pounding louder than the rain outside Maya's calm eyes. Didn't waver. I didn't come for thanks, she said. Evelyn's voice cracked. Then why come back? Maya answered to see if people change. Evelyn's hand gripped the table she wanted to stand, but her knees felt weak. Victor's expression was unreadable, cold but sad, maybe tired. Evelyn's words came slow. What do you want from me? Maya looked at her reflection in the glass window. I want nothing. I only wanted you to remember that people you crush have hearts too. Evelyn opened her mouth to reply, but no words came. Victor stood, his voice quiet but sharp. As morning came, Evelyn sat by the window of her mansion. Her husband had left before sunrise. She had watched him go without a word. She walked through the silent halls. Every painting, every mirror seemed to watch her accusing eyes. She stopped at her dressing table, where photos of her younger self smiled back, perfect, flawless, untouchable. She stared at them until the glass seemed to melt. Then she swept them aside and whispered, "Who was I trying to be?" The sound of glass breaking echoed through the room. Her phone buzzed, a new message, unknown number. She opened it and froze. It was a photo of her old company, now renamed the Noor Foundation, with a banner across its entrance reading, Hope Restored. Evelyn stared at it for a long time. Her heart, heavy yet strangely calm. Beneath the message was a short line from Maya. It's never too late to do good. Evelyn's hands shook. She typed a reply but stopped, deleting every word. Instead, she wrote one line, "Thank you," and pressed send. The next evening, Evelyn walked into the shelter. Her long coat simple, her hair tied back, no makeup, no jewelry. Maya looked up from a table of children, her surprise hidden behind calm eyes. Evelyn took a deep breath. "I came to help," she said. Maya watched her silently, for a moment, then nodded. "There's room in the kitchen." Evelyn followed her inside quietly, washing her hands, tying an apron. She began cutting vegetables beside the others. No one recognized her. No one bowed. They just worked together in the soft light. Hours passed, and laughter filled the air for the first time in years. Evelyn smiled, not a cold or perfect smile, but a real one. When the children came running, she handed them bowls, her hands shaking but her heart steady. She glanced at Maya, who nodded silently, a quiet truce between pain and peace outside the city. Lights shimmered on wet streets. The storm was gone, replaced by calm. The two women stood side by side. No more enemies, no more fear, only the echo of what they had both lost, and what they had finally found again, the sound of kindness returning to a world that had forgotten it. The next morning, the sun rose over the city, painting the wet streets in gold and silver light. The world looked washed clean, yet inside Evelyn's heart the storm had only changed shape. She sat in her car parked near the shelter, her hands trembling around a cup of coffee she hadn't tasted. She had been there since dawn, watching people walk in, smiling faces, poor faces, real faces. Her face, hidden behind dark glasses, afraid of being seen, not as the millionaire's wife, but as a woman without armor. Her breath fogged the window as she whispered to herself, "Just go inside." But fear kept her still. Across the street, Maya arrived carrying boxes of clothes, her eyes tired but bright. She had barely slept since the foundation opened. Donations were flooding and volunteers arriving every hour. The building that once held silence now echoed with laughter and hope. She saw Evelyn's car through the glass and paused, her steps slowing for a moment. She said nothing, just lifted the box and walked inside, pretending not to notice the woman who once ruled rooms with a glance. Inside the shelter, the air was warm, filled with the smell of bread and soap and the chatter of children. Maya placed the boxes on the counter and joined the others, helping a group of elderly workers fill out forms for new homes. Her movements calm, her smile soft. She was no longer the girl who served tables. She was something stronger, shaped by pain but guided by grace. Evelyn finally opened her door, the morning air sharp against her skin. She walked slowly, crossing the street, her heels clicking against the wet pavement, every step heavy like walking. Through memory, she entered the shelter, eyes darting around, faces turned. Some whispered, some stared, recognizing her. But Maya raised a hand quietly, letting them know it was all right. Evelyn stopped at the door, uncertain. Then she spoke, her voice low. "May I help?" Maya nodded. "Yes, you can." The day passed in a blur of motion. Evelyn washed dishes, served food, carried boxes. Her hands blistered, unused to work, but she didn't complain. Not once. She listened to stories of people she had never seen before. Builders, maids, drivers, women who had lost everything but still smiled. She began to see herself through their eyes. A woman who had everything yet knew nothing. At noon, Maya found her sitting by the window, staring at the rain that had begun again. Soft, gentle, forgiving, Maya sat beside her. Neither spoke for a while, then Evelyn said, "I don't understand how you can forgive me." Maya looked out the window. "Forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's letting go of hate so we can heal." Evelyn swallowed, her throat tight. "I thought power made me untouchable." Maya's voice was quiet. "Power shows who we really are, not who we pretend to be." Evelyn turned to her, eyes wet. "Then who am I?" Maya smiled faintly. "Someone who still has a chance." Later that evening, a crowd gathered outside, journalists flashing cameras, curious about the millionaire's wife working in a shelter. Evelyn froze, panic rising. Maya stepped forward, blocking the cameras. "No photos, please. This is not a story, it's a start." The reporters hesitated, then slowly left, their curiosity fading into respect. Evelyn exhaled, her eyes wide. She whispered, "Thank you." Maya shook her head. "No need, this is your lesson, not your punishment." Evelyn nodded slowly, understanding. Night came, the shelter quiet. Now the last of the children asleep, Evelyn and Maya stood near the door, watching the city lights through the rain. Evelyn said softly, "I sold the mansion today." Maya looked at her, surprised. "What will you do now?" Evelyn smiled, a tired, sad smile. "Live. Differently, I think. Maybe smaller, maybe kinder, I don't know yet, but I want to learn." Maya nodded. "That's enough to begin." As they spoke a little, Boy woke up, wandering toward them, rubbing his eyes. He looked at Evelyn and said, "Are you the lady who brought the blankets?" She knelt down, smiling. "Yes, I guess I am." He grinned. "Thank you, miss. My sister says rich people don't care." Evelyn felt a lump in her throat. She brushed his hair back and whispered, "Maybe some do. They just forget how the—" Boy hugged her quickly and ran back to his bed. Evelyn stood slowly, looking at Maya, her voice trembling. "I used to think winning meant never bowing, never breaking. Now I see real power is being able to kneel for someone else." Maya smiled softly. "That's what my father used to say." Evelyn blinked, then whispered, "He sounds like a man I wish I'd met." Maya looked toward the sky. "Maybe you will one day in your heart." The thunder rumbled far away, the storm fading into calm. Evelyn turned to the window, one last time watching her reflection blur in the glass. It no longer looked like the woman she once was. No diamonds, no pride, only a face, learning to feel again. She whispered to herself softly, almost a prayer, "I will make it right." And behind her, Maya listened, knowing the cycle had truly broken. Two women, once enemies, now bound by truth, by loss, by the quiet power of change. The shelter lights dimmed, the city sighed, and for the first time in years, Evelyn Monroe felt something she had never known before: peace. "Evelyn, this deal tonight transfers control of the hotel chain to a new partner." She blinked, confused. What partner? He looked at Maya, then back at her. "Her," he said softly. Evelyn's laugh broke through disbelief. "You're joking." He didn't answer. He only placed a folder on the table. Inside was a contract already signed by him and the board. Evelyn opened it, her hands trembling. The logo of her empire stared back, but the name beside it was Maya Noor. Her chest tightened, her eyes wet with rage and shock. "You gave her everything." Victor didn't move. I gave her what was already hers. She saved the woman who destroyed her and still walked away. Now she owns what you never respected." Evelyn stumbled back, gripping the chair behind her. Maya stepped away, her face calm, her voice low. "This isn't revenge, ma'am, it's balance." Evelyn's breathing turned shallow. She wanted to scream, but the sound died in her throat. Victor stood slowly, his voice cutting through the silence. "You always said no one could make you kneel. Maybe you were wrong." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears, her pride cracking like glass. And as the thunder rolled across the city, the restaurant watched in stunned silence while she sank slowly to her knees, unable to speak, unable to hide the truth of her own defeat. The rain poured harder outside, turning the glass walls into silver curtains of light. The crystal bloom was almost empty now. Only a few candles flickered across tables, casting long, trembling shadows. Evelyn still knelt on the marble floor, her tears mixing with the drops of spilled wine. Her diamond earrings glimmered like fallen stars Victor had left without another word, and Maya stood quietly near the window. Her hands folded, her eyes soft, not in pride, not in revenge, but in something far heavier. The silence between them filled the room like smoke. The manager peeked from behind the counter, unsure if he should step closer. His voice shook as he whispered, "Ma'am, please stand, people are watching." Evelyn did not answer. She could not. The weight of everything pressed down on her chest. Her name, her wealth, her reputation, all cracked. In one evening, she looked at Maya, then at the contract still lying on the table. Her empire now, in the hands of the girl she once humiliated. Her lips trembled as she tried to speak, but only a broken whisper escaped. "Why? Why would you do this?" Maya turned slowly, her face calm, her voice low. "I didn't take anything that wasn't already mine." Evelyn blinked, her confusion growing. "What are you saying?" Maya walked closer, the rainlight reflecting in her eyes. "You remember the hotel fire 5 years ago?" Evelyn nodded weakly. "Yes, Victor told me you saved me that night." Maya shook her head. "Not just you, I saved the man trapped in the basement too, the man who was fixing the power lines." Evelyn frowned. "I don't understand." Maya looked down. "That man was my father. He worked for your husband's company without insurance, without safety gear. You remember the reports? They called it a technical error, but it wasn't." Evelyn's eyes widened. She tried to rise, but her legs wouldn't move. "What are you saying?" Maya's voice softened. "That night when the fire spread, he was ordered to stay behind to shut down the system. Victor signed that order to protect his investors, and you signed the documents that denied him compensation." Evelyn gasped, her breath uneven. No, that's not true." Maya stepped closer, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "I have the files. I've seen your signature. He died 3 hours later, trapped under the same building you owned, and that night I pulled you from the wreckage without even knowing who you were." Evelyn's hand covered her mouth, the air around them seemed to vanish. The manager took a step back, whispering to another staff member, "Call security." But Maya raised her hand. "It's all right," she said softly. "I'm not here to hurt her. I came here to finish something." Evelyn's voice cracked. "Finish." What? Maya looked around the empty restaurant. "Finish the circle," she whispered. "People like my father die invisible, while people like you drink champagne above them tonight. The line ends here." Evelyn shook her head, tears falling. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't." Maya nodded. "Maybe you didn't, but you chose not to see. That's the same thing." The thunder rolled outside and the lights flickered once Evelyn gripped the edge of the table, her eyes on the contract, her empire, her pride, her life. Slipping through her hands, Maya's expression stayed calm. "I could have sold everything," she said. "I could have left the country. But I kept your name on the business. I want you to see what power feels like when it's used to rebuild, not destroy," Evelyn whispered. "Rebuild what?" Maya answered. "Lives, dignity, faith." Evelyn stared at her, unable to breathe. "You want to turn my company into charity?" Maya shook her head. "No, I want to turn it into justice." Suddenly the door opened. Victor returned, his coat soaked, his face unreadable. Evelyn looked at him, desperate. "Victor, please tell her she's wrong." Victor's voice was quiet. "She's not wrong." Evelyn froze, her mouth open, eyes wide. He walked closer, dropping a folder on the table. It was the same folder he had carried years ago, filled with papers stamped confidential. Evelyn recognized her signature at the bottom. The insurance denial form she signed after the fire. The proof she had buried behind lawyers and lies. "Victor said I told you to check before signing, but you didn't care. It was just numbers to you." Evelyn's sobs broke through her chest. "I thought it was all handled. I thought Maya cut in." "No, you thought money could bury truth." Victor nodded slowly. "And now the truth has returned." Evelyn reached toward him, her hands trembling. Victor stepped back, the distance between them colder than glass. He looked at Maya, then said, "It's yours now. Everything you choose. What happens next?" Maya nodded, once her voice steady. "I already have." Evelyn's tears blurred her sight. "What will you do?" Maya turned to the window, watching the rain fall on the city lights. "I'll build homes for workers. I'll start scholarships for their children. I'll use your empire to fix what you both broke." Evelyn collapsed back to her knees, her diamonds clinking against the marble, her voice small. "What about me?" Maya's eyes met hers. "You'll live," she said softly, "and that's punishment enough." The thunder boomed again, shaking the chandeliers. The rain outside became a curtain hiding the city from view. Evelyn lowered her head, sobbing, the sound echoing like a confession. Victor walked away without another word, leaving only silence and the sound of rain. Maya picked up the contract, folded it gently, and walked toward the exit, her steps quiet but firm. The lights dimmed behind her as she disappeared into the storm, leaving the once feared woman kneeling alone in the ruins of her pride. The storm raged through the night, the sky roaring like an angry sea, and lightning flashed across the tall glass towers of the city. Evelyn sat alone inside the empty restaurant, her reflection trembling in the window. Her makeup ruined her eyes, swollen, her heart breaking beneath the silence. The staff had gone home, the candles had melted to shadows, and the scent of wine and smoke lingered like ghosts. She tried to breathe, but every breath hurt like the memory of her own arrogance. She whispered Maya's name once softly, as if hoping the air might answer her. Outside, Maya walked through the rain. Her coat soaked, her hair clinging to her face, yet she felt lighter than ever before. The papers in her bag were safe. The documents that proved everything signed, sealed, done. She reached a quiet street where an old shelter stood, the sign flickering blue. Her father's name engraved on a small plaque above the door. She paused, touching it gently with trembling fingers. She whispered, "I did it, Father. They finally know." Then she smiled, faintly, not a smile of triumph but of peace. She walked inside where warm lights glowed and children laughed somewhere beyond the sound of thunder, back in the crystal bloom. Evelyn wiped her tears, her diamond ring catching the last spark of lightning. She remembered the night of the fire, Victor's voice shouting over the phone, her careless laugh before everything burned. She thought it was a small incident, a simple tragedy. She never cared who paid the price until tonight, when that tragedy had a name and a face and eyes that saw right through her. Evelyn rose slowly, her knees stiff, her body heavy. She walked toward the table where the contract still lay. She touched it, the paper cold and wet from her tears. And for the first time she felt small, not weak but human. She turned as the door opened behind her. It was Victor, his coat dripping water. His eyes tired, she stared at him, her voice barely a whisper. "You came back." He nodded but said nothing for a long time. They just stood there, listening to the rain. She asked, "Why did you hide it from me about her father?" Victor's voice was calm. "Because you wouldn't have cared." Evelyn flinched like the words were knives. She stepped closer, trying to find the man she once knew, the man she married, but his gaze was distant, colder than the night. "You know she owns everything now," Evelyn said quietly. Victor nodded. "She will do more good with it than we ever did." Evelyn shook her head, her voice cracking. "You gave her my life." Victor looked at her. Your life was built on someone else's ashes. Evelyn's tears returned heavy and bitter. I loved you, she said softly. Victor looked away. Maybe once, but love isn't control. Evelyn felt something inside her break again. She sank into a chair, whispering, "What do I do now?" Victor sighed. "Learn to be kind. That's a start." Maya spent the night at the shelter. She helped the cook serve food to the children. She cleaned the floor. She laughed when a little girl spilled soup on her sleeve, and for the first time since her father's death, she felt warmth not from revenge but from purpose. She looked out the window and saw dawn breaking the rain, slowing to mist, the city glowing gold through the fog. She whispered, "Thank you, Father, for teaching me that kindness wins louder than hate."